YouTube. So we will begin with our single item public meeting, and then we have a couple of items on our regular agenda. So I'll read the notice of collection for the public meeting. Yes, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just provide those watching who's present in the meeting currently, that would be.
Please do. I'm sorry. I forgot that's our new protocol. I appreciate it.
No problem, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting. I just wanted to quickly run through who is present in the meeting with us this evening. Mr. Chair, I can confirm that we do have quorum, and as you can see, we do have 4 of our 5 committee members with us this evening, save for Councillor Hill, who has provided his regrets. Staff members present this evening include Tim Park, Acting Director of Planning Services, James Barr, Acting Manager of Development Approvals, Lindsay Lambert, Senior Planner, Megan Robidoux, Planner, Blair Johnson is acting as our host this evening, and myself, Elizabeth Fawcett, I am the Committee Clerk for Planning Committee. We currently have 2 applicants joining us this evening as well, and there are currently 8 members of the public viewing from the gallery at this time.
Great, thank you very much. So I will read, excuse me, our notice of collection. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing and process is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes which will be available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning Services. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. Interested persons are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. Interested members of the public can email the committee chair or the assigned planner if they wish to be notified regarding a particular application. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to this rule is combined reports, which consolidates the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. This business practice has been in place for a number of years and is received by the applicants as efficient customer service and effective use of committee time. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. And tonight's public application is a suggested combined report. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to Planning Services staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to Planning Committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When the review is completed, a report will be prepared, making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. The committee then makes a recommendation on the application to City Council. City Council has the final say on the applications from the city's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston to the local planning appeal tribunal, but that person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submission to the City of Kingston before the bylaw is passed, that person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. And our first and only public meeting tonight is regarding 870 Centennial Drive, and we'll now open it up for that presentation.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
the floor is yours.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
I can, although you may want to move a little closer to the mic.
Okay. How's that?
It's a little better.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Good evening. My name is Claudio Belbino of the Agora Research Group. We are land use planners or market analysts representing the registered owner of 870 Centennial Drive. Next slide, please. The site is comprised of a parcel of land located on the east side of Centennial Drive, approximately 125 meters north of Taylor Kidd Boulevard. Total land area of the site is approximately half a hectare or 1.1 acres. It has a frontage of 50.6 meters along Centennial Drive and a depth of about 103 meters along the longest side yard. The property is designated arterial commercial in the official plan and currently made up of 3 C2 zones in a split zone configuration to include C2H, C2-28H, -H, and C22-28 in the zoning bylaw number 76-26 as amended. The development proposals for 3 standalone buildings to be located on the site's specific uses within the buildings number 1 and 2 have not been established, although building 2 will consist of 3 separate commercial units. Building 3 will accommodate an automotive oil change operation. The development proposal is also the subject of a site plan control application under file number D11-46-2020. That is in the advanced stages of review. Direct access to the site is currently provided by a full turn ingress-egress point on Centennial Drive, which is shared with Ultramart, the Ultramart service station, including the car wash and Circle C convenience store, and a Rexall pharmacy. In addition, there are 3 supplementary access points on the perimeter of the commercial node, which include a right-in, right-out only point on Centennial Drive, a right-in, right-out only point on Taylor Kidd Boulevard, and a full turn access point on Edgar Street. The intersection at Taylor Kidd Boulevard and Centennial Drive is supported by a fully signalized intersection. Pedestrian access is provided by municipal sidewalk along the east side of Centennial Drive, adjacent to the site. Furthermore, there is a mutual access and operating agreement on title that provides for shared rights of access and maintenance along 870 Centennial Drive, the proposed development, 434 Taylor Kidd, which is the Ultramart service station, car wash, and Circle C, and 817 Edgar Street, which is the Rexall pharmacy. The agreement specifically provides for shared internal pedestrian and vehicle movement, as well as the utilization of common accesses. In terms of infrastructure, municipal services originating along Centennial Drive are connected to Kingston utilities and have been stubbed into the site. Next slide, please. In terms of context, site is bounded by established residential neighborhoods to the north, east, and west. Adjacent and to the south of the site, as previously mentioned, is located the Ultramar gas station, Circle C, convenience store, a car wash, and the Rexall pharmacy. On the southeast quadrant of Taylor Kidd Boulevard and Centennial Drive is the Kingston Citadel, and on the southwest quadrant is the Petro-Canada service station. On the northeast quadrant of Taylor Kidd Boulevard and Edgar Street is a retirement residence. Next slide, please. The development proposal consists of 3 commercial buildings. Building number 1 measures approximately 244 square meters. Building number 2 measures approximately 364 square meters. And building number 3, the proposed oil change operation, measures approximately 151 square meters. Next slide, please. So the total gross area of the development will be 758 square meters or 8,159 square feet. Next slide, please. In terms of parking, the site requires 41 parking spaces, and the owner is providing 43 parking spaces, including 2 barrier-free spaces. Next slide, please. The development proposal meets and exceeds all C2 general zone standards, including landscape ratio, which requires 10% of the site being landscaped, and the owner is providing over 24% landscape coverage. Next slide, please. The only standard that does not conform is related to the regulation that govern automobile service stations. The automobile service station interior side setback standard is 9.1 meters, and the development proposal is requesting relief for a 2.5 meter setback. Next slide, please. There are 3 components to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, and they include: number 1, the application seeks to amend the 3 zones that currently regulate the site into one new site-specific zone. Number 2, application is seeking zoning relief for the minimum interior side yard setback standard related to the automotive service station building from the required 9.1 meters to 2.5 meter setback. And the application seeks to remove the holding symbol that applies to 2 of the 3 existing zones on the site, specifically C2H and C2-28-H. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, the site is regulated by 3 C2 zones in a split zone configuration, as shown on the slide. The biggest portion being the C2-H, and then if you move down a bit, it's the rectangle at C2-28-H, and there's a small triangle that's zone C2-28. Amending the existing split zoning on the site is considered a technical amendment, as a change to the site-specific C2-26 zone will not change any of the permitted uses or zone standards except for the automobile service station interior side yard setback. Next slide, please. The second point, the proposed development is requesting to decrease the minimum interior side yard setback of the automotive service station, which is building number 3 at the bottom of the site plan. And in red, it shows that the current standard requires a 9.1 meter setback, and the current request is to reduce it to 2.5 meters. The owner has cited the automobile service station use the furthest away from the abutting residential properties as possible, and has increased the rear yard setback from the required 7.6 setback to 17.3 meters, and that's shown in black at the rear of the site. Now, there's also a stormwater pipe which is buried in the site, which is shown as the yellow highlighted area that obviously cannot have any buildings or anything concrete on it. So the owner was forced to move the building as far south as possible because of that restriction as well. Furthermore, a noise impact study was completed on the site to the satisfaction of the city, indicating that there will be no noise impact from the oil change operation. Next slide, please. The third component of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is the removal of the holding symbol that applies to 2 of the split zones. Specifically, as you can see there on the slide, C2-H and the other split zone, which is the rectangle portion, C2-28-H. The triangle portion of the site is not under the holding symbol, so that does not require a holding removal. We understand from the comprehensive report that staff are satisfied in terms of the application having demonstrated compliance with the criteria established in section 6, subsection 6, and subsection III of the zoning bylaw to remove the holding symbol. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the requested zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate given it is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 policies, conforms to the intent of the Kingston official plan policy, and is compatible with the surrounding land uses. Furthermore, in my opinion, the requested zoning bylaw is representative of good land use planning and is in the public interest. So thank you for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Great, thank you very much. If we can now turn to city planning staff person to speak to compliance to Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And through you, staff can confirm that the combined notice of public meeting and regular meeting for this application has been completed in accordance with the Planning Act. Staff have received some questions via email regarding the application. By and large, those questions relate to site plan matters. There is an ongoing site plan application concurrent to the zoning bylaw amendment application. The notice for this zoning bylaw amendment appears to have opened up a forum for a dialogue, and staff have been facilitating communications between the applicant and interested residents to answer questions and attempt to resolve some concerns related to site plan matters. There are a couple of pieces of correspondence on the addendum this evening related to this application as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open it up to members of the committee to ask questions of the applicant. Just raise your hand if you have questions you'd like to bring forward. Yes, Councillor Osanek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, some questions to the applicant. My computer, oh, there we go. Good. It was stuck and I couldn't bring up the PDF documents. For building number 1 and building number 2, could someone, like, you don't have what the future use might be. So because for building 1, you have possibly a proposed patio area, does that mean that it could be a restaurant?
It could, through you, Mr. Chairman, it could be a restaurant. However, as the market has changed for restaurant uses, it doesn't look likely at this point. So that will just basically convert to a sodded area with some landscape.
Okay, thank you. And I suppose you saw the one comment that came through about the garbage disposal bins.
Yes.
And if the disposal bins could be moved further back from the backyards so that rats won't be attracted. Is there, I know that's a site plan issue, but you'll look at that for site plan?
Yes, through you again, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a good point. We'll certainly take a look at that and see if we can perhaps relocate it further away from the residents. So,
okay. Thank you. And I have a question about traffic flow. So I see that traffic comes off in Centennial Drive and then it goes straight and then it goes around building number 3 in a one-way direction. And then when it exits on the other side of building 3. But it's got like that gap there when you first come off Centennial Drive, there's a gap, like an immediate gap right before that concrete barrier. Are cars ever going to sneak through that way to those couple of parking spots on that immediate west side? How does that traffic flow work? Or is that like two-way traffic and cars could go in and out through there towards building 1?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So what you're seeing there on the site plan is the fire route. So that is the route that the fire department will basically take if there is a fire. Otherwise, it's a two-way traffic through the entire site. So what you see there isn't a controlled traffic flow. It basically shows the fire route in case there's a fire. So the fire department needs to see how they can access the building. So that's what you're seeing on that site.
Okay, thanks. So that means cars wouldn't be going through there.
Well, cars would enter through Centennial or the other 3 access points and move to the site. They can access at any open point on that site.
Oh,
So
okay. It just seems kind of tight. Okay, thank you. So now I just want to ask some questions about the trees. So in one of the not the landscape plans, the tree inventory that we have, it's got the red highlight at the top, and it talks about the trees removed, and they're all Manitoba maple, and it shows 13 trees. Like, is that all the trees that are to be removed, or are there 200 trees?
No. So the way it works is under the tree bylaw is that the only trees that you have to replace, basically the tree bylaw says you don't need to replace any tree within the building footprint or within 15 meters of the building footprint. Keep in mind, this is a small site. So when all that's taken into consideration, all you're really looking at is those 11 trees that need to be replaced. Now, to put that into context, the owner is going to be replacing it with 30 new trees, plus 8 trees that are retained along the back of the development. Plus, he's going to add 188 shrubs, plus 63 grasses. So he's almost replacing them at a 3-to-1 ratio, and then adding the extra shrubs as 184 shrubs as well. But that's the way the bylaw is structured at this point. Tree bylaw. Okay.
So the 8 trees to be retained, they fall within that 3-meter planting strip?
Yes. So any tree that fell on any existing tree that is located along the rear setbacks and the planting strip will be retained. We're not removing any tree that is within that landscape strip at the rear of the building or along the side. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And for the minutes, I'd like to request when site plan is done that there's a water irrigation system built in to help the survival rate of those 30 new trees that are going to be planted. I just wondered for the applicant if they could describe those, I don't know how to say them. They're like concrete pads, but I understand that they're not going to be solid concrete. They basically surround on the west side of building 3. I understand that they're going to have grass in there and that you're actually planting serviceberry bushes. I guess those fill out to sort of be like a tree. I don't know if some shade trees could be planted in there as well. Is it true that you're planting grass in there?
Yes. So the landscape plan shows that let's call them islands around the
islands.
Let's take a look at building 3. So those little islands on the west side and east side beside the parking lot, that will all be sodded, including there'll be two service berries on the, I guess it'll be the east side, and 1 on the west side of the oil change operation.
Mm-hmm. So for site plan, if a couple of like regular trees could be planted as well, because serviceberry, they don't get to be all that big, really.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so through you, Mr. Chairman, what we can do is we'll speak to the landscape architect again and see if we can put something, I think probably more substantial. I think that's what you're looking at, maybe. Mm-hmm. And see if we can do that instead of the service berries.
Yeah. Just so like right now when you drive by it, it is a really nice wooded forest right at the back of the property. And it was always my hope that whatever developer ended up buying the property and then developing it would give maximum consideration for that forest that is left there, because it is so pretty, especially in the fall time when the colors change. And, you know, other than 8 trees,
yeah,
that's it.
So Mr. Chairman, through you again, so that's why the owner went aggressive on the planting of new trees. As I said, 30 new trees plus 8 that retain, that's 38 trees plus 188 shrubs. It'll be pretty intense along the back of or the buffer to the residents. So,
All right, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Other members of the committee, if you have any questions. Yes, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you, Mr. Balbino, for your presentation. I'm just going to pick up on Councillor Osanik's question about trees, just to clarify a few things, because this is an issue that's been brought up by residents to me as well. The request for the change in the side yard setback from 9.1 to 2.5 meters, can you talk about how that impacts the grove that's there now? In other words, if the request were not granted, would more trees be retained?
I'm sorry, Councillor, you broke up. Could you just repeat the last portion, please?
No problem. My internet's been shoddy for the last while. I'm just wondering about the change in the side yard setback
Right.
from 9.1 meters to 2.5 meters.
Right.
If that's granted, how does that change the trees that can or cannot be retained?
Okay, so if we basically did the full 9.1 meter, we'd still be wiping out a lot of we basically wipe out a lot of trees back there, regardless. Keep in mind that we have to stay off that storm pipe easement as well. So that's why we're pushing that building as far over as possible. Regardless, we needed that for parking, and we needed that for the access lane. Again, what we're trying to do is we understand that there was substantial amount of trees there. What we're trying to do is replace as many of them as possible. Again, along the back buffer with the residents. That was the goal of the landscape architect.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll leave it there for now, recognizing committee has additional time for questions later, and perhaps residents want to pursue that if there are any here. My second question quickly is for staff. So through you, Mr. Chair, concerning the noise study that said the oil operation will have no adverse impact, could staff give us a bit more context, especially for residents who may be watching? How is it that an industrial operation will not have any adverse impact when it's literally in people's backyard?
Yes, Ms. Lambert.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The noise study was prepared and was reviewed by our Transportation Services Department, and they indicated that they're satisfied that the noise generated by the proposed uses and the traffic meet the NPC 300 guidelines, which are the guidelines set by the province. There is also a gas station that was established to the south in recent years. That site plan would have required a noise study as well. And the setback is pretty substantial in terms of where that building is located in relation to the rear yard. And there is quite a substantial planting strip that's proposed along the rear lot line, being 10 feet in depth, as well as the existing wood fence from the subdivision. I think all of those elements were considered and factored in to determine that there's sufficient noise buffering for the proposed use to be located in the fashion where it's proposed.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert, and through you, Mr. Chair, supplemental, and I think you've answered what I was going to ask anyway, but just for complete clarity, the noise report takes into consideration the proposed planting as opposed to the existing foliage. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the proposed development on all of the elements that are factored in to what's being proposed are considered through the noise study as opposed to existing conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchison, did you have any questions? No? Okay. If you could take the chair, Vice Chair
I do.
Kylie,
And
very
I'll recognize
briefly.
you, Councillor Neal. Go for it.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I know there was mention that certain things are site plan related. It's been our habit of always allowing people to bring up site plan issues during the public meeting, since, with the exception of when councillors ask for a bump up, there isn't a site opportunity for people to express their concerns regarding site plan issues. So that's perfectly within our tradition, and we allow that to happen. So, and that was it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next time you can just keep the chair and keep us in order like that. That's good.
okay, not to worry. So, we will now open it to the public and give the, oh, I see we have Councillor Chappelle has joined us. Although not a member of the committee, he is recognized as a non-voting ex officio member of the committee. So if you have comments or questions, Councillor Chappelle, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't have my glasses, so give me a second here. Mr. Balbino? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for answering the questions of my colleagues regarding trees. I happen to walk past this on a regular basis, although it's in the district just south of me. I tend to go to the Rexall Pharmacy, and I've always enjoyed seeing wildlife in that area. The easement that you're looking for on the side yard, reducing it substantively, I have to agree with my colleague Councillor Kylie that I don't have an understanding of how many mature trees are within that corridor along that easement sewer that I believe is along the sidewalk extension, not on the sidewalk extension, but on the backside, backs onto the properties of the residents.
Mhm.
Is there any way that the building number 2 could be shifted? I guess it would be southwest further and give a larger area down along the back of those properties that have enjoyed a forested property for so many years. And the reason I asked this question is some of the trees are quite mature, and I see the types of trees that, and I don't know what your building is like, but I mean, sometimes they're planting trees that are less than 10 centimeters in diameter, and you got to wait 30 years for that tree to be any substantive size. And I'm just very concerned about the residents that live there. And so I'm just wondering, is there any way to shift the building a little further southwest to facilitate a larger strip of green space?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, are you referring to building number 2 or number 3, sir? Sorry.
I'm looking at the map.
Is it the small building at the bottom? Or?
The small building at the bottom, does that also go into the behind the gas station? Is that where building 3 is?
It's behind the gas station and the car wash.
No, I'm talking about building 2 from the residents that have the setback against their fence line. I'm just wondering if that one could be moved further southwest.
Southwest. That would put it closer to the access point. Is that what you're saying? There isn't a lot of trees up there, though. Most of the trees are down at the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay, then could that building 3 then move closer to Centennial Boulevard?
Well, I guess we'd have to, through you, Mr. Chairman, we'd have to take a look at the site configuration and see if it works with the parking and everything else.
And I'm assuming the reason why the building is situated there for optimal circular pattern around the building for an in and out. Is that what the access point is about?
Well, it's the access points and also the location of parking spaces to the access points of the building.
Okay. And at this juncture, is there only one building that's currently going to be used for this doctor spa, or is it all 3 of these buildings?
For a doctor sponsor?
Is that what the name is called, DR Spa? It's an oil change place. What's it called?
Oh, I guess it's oil 5 or 5 change oil or something like that. That's one of them.
Okay, so there are separate buildings, separate businesses in each of those 3 buildings then?
Yeah, so the only oil change operation will be the small building number 3
Okay,
at the south end. That's the only oil change operation or automotive use on that site. The rest will all be retail commercial uses, which haven't been defined because of the obviously the market is pretty upside down right now.
sure. Okay, that's the questions I have for now. Thank you very much for your responses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chappelle. We'll now go to the public, but members of the committee will have an opportunity if other questions come forward after the public have spoken. Before I ask our Madam Clerk to go forward with members of the public, I'll just mention the protocol is that all members of the public have a 5-minute opportunity to speak. They should introduce themselves with name and address. All of the questions or comments will be gathered by both our staff and the applicant, and they will be answered as a whole at the end of the public session. So, Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. For those joining us this evening as members of the public, should you wish to speak during this time, you will need to raise your hand in Zoom. To do so, you will need to select the raise hand button, which is located in the center of your screen when you move the mouse over the Zoom window. So, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to give a couple of seconds here to see if we have any requests. I do currently have one hand, so I'm going to ask Ms. Dupuis if she would like to unmute.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Okay, hi, it's Karina Dupuis. Hi, Mr. Kiley. I live at 837 Edgar, so my backyard is right there. It's the one with the proposed dumpsters behind it, and I'm really with the full bank of trees. I just wanted to first off thank the counselors. I'm really impressed with how much you're talking about us and you're talking about our trees, because it's terrifying for us. This is why we live here, is because it's this rare little thing that we've got this forest. So this is just really upsetting. There's just a couple things. I mean, all the talk about replacing trees is all fine and dandy, but like the last counselor said, replacing these mature trees with new trees, it's kind of a joke. These take decades to get this kind of fullness and height. It just won't. We've seen trees that are around shopping malls. It's not going to be the same. Also, I'm wondering why there has to be 43 parking spaces. It just seems like pave paradise and put up a parking lot. I don't really understand the need for that many. And again, reiterating what the last counselor said is we have owls, foxes, we even have coyotes back there. So I'm concerned about that too. As was mentioned, I believe that was my question. I just want to make sure it's in the notes that if there could be somewhere else the dumpsters could be put other than in our backyard, like I don't know where they could go, but we're just very concerned. So thank you for addressing us and thinking about our trees. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Dupuis. Are there any other hands up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask Giovanna Croco if she'd like to unmute.
Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, it's Giovanna Croco, and we're at 821 Edgar Street, and we're not directly behind where this will be built. But our question is with the privacy with the trees. We've had one tree removed already, and it's a direct line that you can see our house from Taylor Kidd and Centennial Drive. So privacy is a big issue here. The second thing is the same thing with the parking spaces. Why are there so many needed? You mentioned that there's an interest, originally there was an interest to put in a patio, so possibly a restaurant, and that's off the table now. But if that comes back on the table, where does that patio go? And does that not affect when you're in a residential area, if there's alcohol being served? Those are the sort of things we're wanting, because it's a quiet area right now, and we like it to continue that way. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, was that all of our members of the public that wish to speak?
I'm just going to give one final call, Mr. Chair. If there's anyone else who wishes to speak during the public meeting portion, please raise your hand now. And we do have another speaker, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Mr. Dougal if he'd like to unmute himself, please.
Mr. Dougal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive my lack of protocol. I live at 829 Edgar Street. My name is Dennis Dougal, and I have a concern about one of the documents. The appendix is I, and what that refers to as the wind direction and flow. With Centennial opened up to the lake, and when they took down the trees where Rexall is, a lot of the houses in our area lost shingles, et cetera, and things like that. So with the miss of those large trees, there's going to be some wind tunneling effect through the concrete jungle, and that will no doubt cause some damage to the houses. As well as it's a Canadian shield. So any of the pounding that goes back there is going to cause shifting along, causing the fences to fall downhill towards the facility. And I really don't want to see the trees gone. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dougal. And yes, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, we have a repeat hand up. I'm not sure if you would allow Ms. Croco to speak again, although she does get one opportunity to speak during a
Yes, I
public
don't
meeting.
believe she used her 5 minutes. So
Okay,
I will allow her to speak again.
excellent.
Sorry, thank you. It's in follow up to the wind comment. And when those trees were removed from Rexall, our back fence actually collapsed and we had to restructure it. And Rexall was in collaboration with us. They paid their portion to fix it, but that is how strong the wind is. It collapsed against a shed, which was there too. And we've had shingles fly off as well. So, and I promise I won't put my hand back up.
Thank you very much. So I will now give, I presume there are no other hands up, so I will give our planner or the applicant an opportunity to address those questions and concerns, and then we'll go back to the committee.
So, Mr. Chairman, one of the concerns was the location of the garbage enclosure. So that's a concern to the residents. Obviously, I think the owner wants to be a good neighbor. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the location of the garbage enclosure and see if we can move it or relocate it somewhere on site, or perhaps even use a different waste or garbage method, for example, with the MULOC system or something along those lines to minimize the impact on the neighboring residents. But that's a site plan issue, and we'll work through that with the city and the neighbor to ensure that it's something that works for everybody. In terms of the parking, why so many parking spaces? Parking is basically dictated by the square footage on the site. So in this case, I think we had, just give me 1 second here. Based upon the square footage, we require 5.4 parking spaces for every 100 square meters. So that's why it works out to that number of parking spaces that are on the site plan. That's a zoning bylaw standard, and we can't go any lower than that. In terms of the patio, again, I think it's a rather small patio. It's about 15 feet by 15. But again, based upon the market for restaurants nowadays, I don't think that's going to happen. And that area will go to landscape. In terms of the wind damage, it's the first that we've heard about that. Let's work through that with the site plan and see if we can somehow understand what the real problem is and how we can mitigate that. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. I will now return to the committee if there are any further follow-up questions. Yes, Councillor Sanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just hearing about the parking spaces and that it gets calculated just by square footage of the lot. I would definitely, as a councillor, support the final comprehensive report coming back that we reduce the number of parking spaces where we have to cut down trees in order to provide those 43 spaces. So I just wanted to put that out there when the site comprehensive report comes back, you know, for that far east corner, southeast corner where the majority of the forest is right now. There are some parking spaces, I think, if I just pull it up, and I would definitely support it. Like the reports always come back saying the requirement is this many of whatever, but the applicant is asking for reduced setback and reduced parking and reduce this. So in this case, that would be a win for the city and cheaper for the applicant that they don't have to provide as much asphalt for the parking spaces. So if that's possible, I'll put it out there. Also, when the trees are going to be removed, I just want the trees to be removed around the Bird Migratory Act. So to make sure that the trees aren't removed during that peak period where all the baby birds are being born in the trees. So we need to respect that. I know staff try to put that into every comprehensive plan when it does come back to planning committee. And my question for the applicant is, I don't see a document that actually for all the trees that are in that forest. Like usually we see a report of the 200 trees and what every tree is. So we see all of the Manitoba maples that are going to be removed, right? 13, or I think you said 11 Manitoba maples. But in that forest grove right now, do you know from the tree inventory that was done what the predominant species are that is in the forest where those buildings on 2 and 3 are going, or particularly, I suppose, building 3, since that's what's at the southeast corner. Is it oak? Like, what are some of the good tree species that are in there that are going to be cut down because the buildings and the parking spots have to be put there?
Yeah, I'm just quickly going through the inventory. They appear to be all Manitoba maples for the entire site. So what we can do, I think you're asking me for specific, what kind of trees are in a specific area of the site. We can obviously isolate through the data that we have, and we can provide that to be included in the comprehensive study.
Yeah, thanks. That was the confusing part, because I saw that one report with like in red remove, and it was all Manitoba maples, but yeah. I believe that the entire forest is nothing but Manitoba maples.
Yeah, it was done by qualified arborists, horticulturists, and yeah, the inventory, I'm just going right through it. It's all Manitoba maples, and that was one of the reasons. One of the comments came back from the forestry department. They just says, you know, start to increase the variety of trees in that lot because there's too many Manitoba maples. Right. So, yeah. But yeah, we have the data. If you need to break it up by certain sections of the site, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Ms. Lambert is waving at me, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just in response to Councillor Osanek, just want to clarify that there is a comprehensive report on the agenda this evening for the committee's consideration, given that the nature of the zoning bylaw amendment application is fairly technical in nature. With respect to parking, the proposed development is meeting the 5.4 per 100 square meters of floor area specified in the zoning bylaw. So that is, they're meeting the minimum requirement that our zoning bylaw currently requires. If we were to consider a reduction in parking, we would have to request that the applicant prepare a parking study at their expense to support that reduction. And staff wish to note that we'd like to strike an appropriate balance with parking on the site to avoid spillage of parking over into the adjacent residential neighborhood. With respect to the tree inventory, forestry staff were satisfied with the methodology used and have signed off on the tree inventory and preservation plan. And staff have made a note to include language around the Bird Migratory Act in the site plan control agreement so that tree removal does not occur during that time period between mid-April and mid-August. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Osanek.
Thank you, through you. So a question to Ms. Lambert then. So where does the irrigation, the water irrigation system fit in? Is that then site plan, and the only way that we would have, the committee would have consideration for that is to do a bump up to see if that gets added in? Or do we make an amendment tonight to add that to the comprehensive plan? I don't understand.
For you,
Yes,
Mr.
Ms.
Chair, irrigation systems are not a zoning consideration, not something we can include or amend in terms of the recommendation that staff have offered for the committee's consideration this evening. The applicant appears to be open to considering it. They've been open to considering a number of changes that have been brought forward this week by interested members of the public. It's not a standard requirement. It's not a requirement that comes from our current site plan control guidelines. So I would categorize it more of an ask at this point, because it isn't a standard thing that we require for the development of commercial sites in the city. Perhaps Mr. Balbino has some further feedback on the feasibility of that for the site to offer.
You, Mr. Chairman, sure. We certainly take a look at what's being proposed. I need to talk to obviously the owners, but we'll obviously consider it and see if we can make it work and still have a suitable development without impacting the adjoining neighbors. So we're open to discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because we have had developments like Councillor Chappelle and I had an email a couple of days ago about another application that has put in an irrigation system on top of the berm with a bunch of plantings for this exact reason, as a buffer between, two adjoining properties. It had an irrigation. And I know we've seen other applications where a lot of trees are being replanted because trees had originally been taken down, and they have irrigation systems put in to the site as well.
Right.
So that would definitely be appreciated. And then, so there's still going to be site plan. Is that true? Like, then how do we resolve the dumpster issue? That's later with site plan. And again, is there a way we can bump it up, or like, I don't understand.
Yes, I can speak really briefly to that. Any member of council with a mover and a seconder can request a bump up of site plan. That means that the beginning of the construction can't take place until there's a public meeting at this committee and members of the public have an opportunity to speak to those site plan issues. And that's always been a consideration since we don't have separate site plan public meetings. It's a delegated authority until somebody requests a bump up and council passes it.
Okay.
So, I see Ms. Lambert
Thank you.
has her hand up. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the vegetation, I wanted to also add that our site securities through site plan are structured so that there's a later release after a period where the vegetation has taken hold, where we hold back 10% to ensure that the vegetation that's planted has survived and is in accordance with the approved plan. So that is a mechanism to ensure that the landscaping, particularly along the planting strip, takes hold and is healthy. And then further to that, we do have, we would have the plans registered on title, so that if there are concerns from members of council or the public that the landscaping is deficient from what was originally approved, staff have mechanisms to follow up with the applicant as a party to that agreement to require redress.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Kiley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you and probably to you as well. Can you also talk to us a bit about the fact that this is a combined report? We don't often see that, and some of us that are still new, myself included, need a bit of clarity on what that means, and maybe members of the public too.
Sure, I'm happy to. Typically, as I said in the preamble that I read in my very monotone voice every time before a meeting, is a combined meeting is allowed if it's technical in nature and considered routine. However, if there are, in the minds of the committee, if there are questions that are still outstanding or issues that haven't been fully addressed, then when we get to a regular committee meeting, it's perfectly within our right, and it's been done frequently or periodically in the past. We request a deferral for it to come back to this committee after some of those issues have been addressed. And I know we received emails recently, and just off the top of my head, I'm not sure all of those questions in the emails necessarily have been addressed. So typically the chair does not move motions, although they might second or and consider it, but I would leave it up to the committee to decide.
Okay, thanks. That does bring up another question to me, which is a deferral the best move, or is a bump up better? Like, do they essentially do the same thing? That's what I'm trying to sort out in my head after Councillor Osanek asked those great questions.
Yeah, the bump up is specifically for site plan alone. And what happens is our staff bring forward a recommendation report for site plan. During the bump up, the public is given an opportunity to speak to it, and we could amend or pass the recommendation brought forward by staff. I see Mr. Park has his hand up, so he will correct me if anything I said was wrong. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, what you said was absolutely correct. I just wanted to reiterate what you said, that when applications are generally technical in nature, such as this one, they are brought forward as a combined report. And that was staff's opinion of this report. It would appear to me most of the issues that have been raised would generally fall under the site plan application process. So it would be up to committee, obviously, but I would say most of those issues would be addressed through the site plan application process. And to ensure that, then obviously the option of bumping the site plan up would ensure that those were done, and it would also allow the public to come back and see that, ensure that those were addressed in future. Thank you.
Okay, but if I could jump in with a follow-up question. So in your consideration then, because we haven't seen this proposal ever before it came in tonight's agenda, it's your opinion then that the zoning and land use planning aspects of this are routine?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. Really what the main point of this report is, there's two different zones on the property, and it's just harmonizing it into one zone. Both zones permit the uses that are being proposed on the property. However, they have different setback requirements. So it gets very confusing when you have that situation. So it's just really the main purpose of this report is to make the zoning on the property uniform.
Okay, so if it was already uniform and it didn't need to be tweaked, it would have come to us as a full public meeting as required by the Planning Act. But wouldn't we then, since it's the first time we saw it, be looking for a comprehensive report to come back to us at a later date?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If the zoning wasn't split, the only difference that would be before you tonight would be, I believe it's a side yard setback. It would be one variance. And in fact, we would have been able to handle that through a committee of adjustment.
Okay.
Because there were two zones, we had to bring it to planning committee.
So I guess it'll be a matter when we get to our regular meeting, whether the committee is comfortable with the idea that all questions asked by the public or the committee have been appropriately addressed.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I believe Mr. Belbinot, I'm sure I mispronounced your name, but if you have any comments to make, please do.
No. Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree with Mr. Park. If everything was, if there was no split zones, this would basically go straight to minor variance and then to site plan approval. So this is really a technical issue. It's really a split between the technical zoning issues and site plan approval. That's what it really boils down to. So, you know, as I said, with the site plan approval, we're willing to work with the residents in the city to mitigate a few of these concerns that were raised tonight. So I don't have an issue in working with the owner.
Okay. And I will say, even though it's never a land use planning consideration, I will ask you the question, is this in any way time sensitive? Because both a bump up or a deferral could mean not a long delay, but we'd be talking a couple of weeks or a month, I would assume.
Yeah,
Mr. Park would know better than me. So is it time sensitive in your mind, or could you stand a couple week delay?
Yes, I think it is time sensitive because there are some tenant issues that are on the table, with obviously leases and so on and so forth. I think the issue here was that we got caught with this split zoning issue late into the process. So that delayed us probably a good 3 to 4 months as well. Otherwise, we would have went the minor variance route and then site plan, and we would have probably been done by now. But this, you know, I understand why it was done. We don't have an issue with that. But this sidetracked us by at least 3 to 4 months.
Okay, Mr. Park.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, deferring the comprehensive report would probably see this coming back approximately 2 to 3 months from now. Again, depending on the scheduling availability at committee. Whereas the bump up motion has to be made at the next meeting of council. And then we would just have to report back to committee. It probably wouldn't delay it quite as long as the 3 months, but it would still be a deferral of, I'd say, about 4 to 6
Thank you.
weeks
All of that's
eventually.
a good consideration for the committee to make. So are there any other members of the committee with questions or comments before we declare this public meeting over? Seeing none, we will declare this public meeting over, and we'll now go to our regular planning meeting. So we can leave this meeting and come right back? Is that what we do, Madam Clerk, or can we just continue from this Zoom?
We can continue in the current platform, Mr. Chair. If you'd
Excellent.
like it at this time, I can let you know that we still have the same staff members with us at this time and committee members, and we currently have 6 members of the public with us.
Super, thank you very much. I will now turn to our Planning Committee meeting number 14, 2021, and I'll call the meeting to order. Looking for a mover and a seconder for the agenda. Who would like to move and second it? Councillor Kiley, Councillor Rosanek. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of minutes. I don't believe we have any. Do we have minutes? I don't believe so.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there are no minutes for confirmation on this meeting.
Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Anybody in any of the businesses that we've heard about tonight? Seeing none. Delegations. I don't believe we have any. Briefings, we don't have any. I will read a much briefer business statement regarding our protocol. This portion of the meeting is open to the public. The city has initiated a new process in which members of the public will have the opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on comprehensive reports presented before the Planning Committee. Those wishing to provide oral comments at this meeting will be invited to do so. If a person or public body would otherwise have an opportunity to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston to the local planning appeal tribunal, but that person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Kingston before the bylaw is passed, that person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. And we will be going again to 870 Centennial Drive, which was from our public meeting as well. So I will give the opportunity to the committee to ask any questions that you wish to ask. Seeing none, if you could take the chair. There was one question I meant to ask of the applicant earlier. There was some question, a comment about how this is on a limestone base. I presume that there would be no intention of doing blasting at all for foundation work on this site. Is that an accurate assumption? Mr. Balbino?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, sorry, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, can you hear me? I was muted by the host. So
That's okay. Yes, we can hear you.
I think your question was related to will there be any blasting for foundations, so on and so forth. Highly unlikely. The geotechnical report basically indicated that that the rock is going to be below the footings. So so the likelihood of blasting is pretty close to nil.
Yeah, and of course there is an elaborate protocol that you have to go through if you have to blast, including taking pictures of adjoining properties, foundations, and
Building
becoming
surveys.
responsible.
Right, and building.
So, but you're aware of all of those.
Yes.
Of that protocol. Okay, thank you. So if you could return the chair.
I do, and I'll put my hand up.
There you go. Councillor Kiley.
So I just want to say two things. One is I found the applicant's planner very helpful and receptive to working with residents, which is always encouraging. But two, I would like to see this bumped up, and I know that I've emailed that with Councillor Osanik. I know we have to pass it here and bring it to council. And Mr. Chair, I'm just hoping you could confirm that's the process. We confirm it here, but then at council, we request a bump up. Is that right?
That's my understanding. Mr. Park, is that an accurate way that it will work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is the way you bump up a site plan. It's you would, if the application is passed here, then a motion would have to be brought forward at council to bump up the application.
And that would go on
site plan application.
And that would go on the addeds for this coming Tuesday's meeting. So,
either this coming Tuesday or the following council meeting. Oh, yes. Elizabeth.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, through you, this matter won't be at council until the June 22nd meeting.
Okay. Okie doke. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the clerk's primary job, is correcting my mistakes. So I appreciate that. So any further comments or questions from members of the committee, or Councillor Chappelle, who's also still online? Seeing none, we can now open it to members of the public. So Madam Clerk, if you could take over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do still have 4 members of the public with us currently. And again, I'll just ask for those who wish to speak during this portion of the meeting, please raise your hand in Zoom. For those who may have spoken during the public meeting, you still have an opportunity to speak a second time during the business item. If there's anyone who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. And I'll just give a little bit of time, Mr. Chair, to see if there's anyone who wishes to speak.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Just mention to the applicant and to our own staff, those site, and you're absolutely right, Mr. Park, the majority of issues that were brought forward by both the public and members of the committee are site plan related. So we definitely should assume, because I've never seen a site plan bump up ever be refused by council, that you may want to start taking those into consideration now in the site plan preparation, because it will now be coming back to us and the public for consideration. So, so I guess that's it. So seeing no members of the public, seeing no members of the committee with their hands up, we will now ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Osanik, Councillor Kiley. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And so I will declare this item A completed. And we will now turn to item B, which is 9 Cooper Street. And great. And I see Megan Robideau is on, so I assume she's the planner on this. So have we received much correspondence? Yes, Councillor Chappelle.
I was just going to thank you for acknowledging me tonight, Mr. Chair, and wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. So, Ms. Robideau, have we received any or much correspondence regarding this?
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'll definitely review those details in my presentation.
Excellent.
If Ms. Fawcett wouldn't mind pulling up my PowerPoint slides, I'll get started.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. So my name is Megan Robideau, and I'm a planner with the City of Kingston. This is a comprehensive report and recommendation related to an application for zoning bylaw amendment for the property municipally known as 9 Cooper Street. A public meeting was held with respect to this application on November 7th of 2019. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of the application is to rezone the subject property to permit the construction of a 2.5-story rear building addition to facilitate the expansion of the existing 3-unit dwelling on the subject property. Next, please. The subject property is located at 9 Cooper Street, which is situated on the north side of Cooper Street between Albert Street to the east and Collingwood Street to the west. The subject property abuts residential uses in all directions, including 1-unit, 2-unit, and multiple unit dwellings between 1 and 3 stories in height. The subject property is designated residential on Schedule 3A of the official plan and is located in the 1-family and 2-family dwelling A zone of zoning bylaw 8499. Next. The property is currently developed with a 2.5-story triplex dwelling as pictured here. The existing triplex is permitted by way of minor variance, which was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in 1982. Zoning bylaw 8499 prohibits the extension, expansion, or structural alteration of existing multiple family dwellings that have the effect of adding new floor area or dwelling units in the A zone. The applicant is proposing to apply a site-specific A zone to allow for the expansion and alteration of the existing triplex on the subject property. Next, please. So as shown on the site plan here, the applicant is proposing a 2.5-story rear addition on the existing 2.5-story triplex to facilitate the expansion of these existing 3 dwelling units. The proposed development would provide a total of 14 bedrooms across 3 dwelling units. Access is proposed to be maintained off Cooper Street to the rear yard, where 3 new vehicle parking spaces are proposed. Amenity area is proposed to be accommodated through landscaped areas in the rear yard as well. Next slide. So we can see here the proposed floor plans with 2 5-bedroom units and 1 4-bedroom unit across 3 stories. Next slide, please. And here, these are the revised elevations, which maintain the existing structure on the site. Next, please. As included in the staff report, 2 pieces of written correspondence were received related to the application. Since publishing the report, 2 additional pieces of correspondence have been received, which have been reviewed by staff and are addressed by the revised plans. The original plans that were presented at the public meeting proposed to demolish the existing triplex on the property and construct an entirely new 3-story triplex dwelling in about the same location as the existing structure, which was proposed at that time to contain a total of 19 bedrooms. Vehicular access was originally proposed to the property's rear from the city laneway, which is located west of the adjacent property at 15 Cooper Street, and across the existing easement on the rear yard of 15 Cooper Street. However, subsequent to the public meeting, the applicant has submitted revised plans for the proposed development to address questions and concerns that were raised by members of Planning Committee, the public, and planning staff. The revised plans maintain the existing structure on site and instead propose a rear 2.5-story addition as I've described. The proposal will also accommodate vehicular access to the rear yard via the existing on-site driveway as opposed to the city laneway. The applicant has addressed concerns related to building depth by significantly reducing the relief sought from 6.2 meters to 2.8 meters. The applicant has also significantly reduced the total number of bedrooms proposed from 19 to 14 across 3 dwelling units. Next slide, please. So the table shown here details the zoning relief that's requested to facilitate the proposed development. As I previously noted, the A zone does not permit a 3-unit dwelling, and the existing triplex is permitted by way of minor variance. Since the applicant is proposing an increase in floor area, a zoning bylaw amendment is required. The proposed rear addition will not result in the creation of new dwelling units or a change in density. The site will appear largely unchanged from the street and will continue to function as a low-density residential form. The proposal will improve the overall functionality of the site and provide sufficient vehicle parking, amenity area, and landscaped open space. An amendment is required to the minimum lot area provision of the A zone to recognize the existing use of the site with 3 dwelling units at 269 square meters per dwelling unit. This is a condition that will be unchanged by the proposed development as it will not result in the creation of new dwelling units. In regards to building depth, the proposed rear addition would result in a building depth of 20.9 meters, which requires relief of 2.8 meters. The proposed addition is not anticipated to create intrusive overlook concerns on the adjacent property to the east, as the primary use of the rear yard in this instance is as a gravel parking area. The adjacent property to the west of the subject property is developed with a single detached dwelling. The proposed addition has been designed to only extend about 4 meters beyond the rear wall of 15 Cooper Street and has been designed without side-facing windows in this location to mitigate the potential for overlook and loss of privacy. Adverse impacts are not anticipated on the property to the rear as a result of the relief sought for building depth as a rear yard in excess of 20 meters is provided. Relief is also requested for off-street residential parking and parking area. The subject property currently provides only 1 parking space on site that complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The proposed redevelopment will improve the functionality of the site by relocating vehicle parking to the rear yard and by providing 3 vehicle parking spaces that do meet the design standards of the zoning bylaw. Relief is required to provide a rear yard parking area of 48.6 meters, where a maximum of 40 square meters is permitted. The proposed 3 vehicle parking spaces in the rear yard will be accessed via the existing 2.35 meter wide driveway on the subject property. The zoning bylaw requires driveways to be a minimum of 3 meters in width. So the applicant has provided some data to demonstrate typical vehicle widths on a range of vehicle types that are common in Ontario and Kingston. The examples provided include a small car to a full-size pickup truck, which range from 1.79 meters in width to 2.03 meters in width. Given the constraints of the existing site configuration, the relatively large size of the rear yard, and the low traffic volumes along Cooper Street, staff are of the opinion that the requested reduction in driveway width is contextually appropriate and will not result in adverse impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. Finally, in recognition again of the existing site condition, relief is sought for projection into the front yard. The existing front porch and stairs project about 3.9 meters into the front yard, and given that the existing building and front porch are proposed to be retained, the draft zoning bylaw seeks to recognize this existing condition. Next slide, please. The proposed low-density residential development is appropriate and adds to the range of built form and dwelling unit sizes available in the area. A recommendation of approval is before the committee. It's staff's opinion that the application for zoning bylaw amendment at 9 Cooper Street is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the official plan. An amending bylaw has been prepared with the amendments to the zone provisions. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robideau. I will now turn to the committee if there are questions that people have from the committee. Who would like to lead us off? I see Councillor Hutchison. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not quite sure where to start here. I'll start with I believe Ms. Robideau, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I just learned that today. So said, and for confirmation, that the question of the rear yard overlook at 2.8 meters has been approved because of the adjacent gravel parking area. And I'm particularly interested in the situation of the person who is at the rear of the Cooper Street stretch of that property at 418 Earl. They wrote a letter about this. So can you confirm that's what you were saying there? Because I'm not criticizing when I say you're racing through it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your question, Councillor. Yeah, I'm happy to review that again for the benefit of the committee. So the property that's located immediately to the east of the subject property, that is the property that's occupied by a gravel parking area in the rear yard. So for that reason, based on that existing use of the rear yard, there were fewer concerns in terms of the potential for loss of privacy or overlook. In regards to the adjacent property to the west, this is where there is a single detached dwelling developed that has a backyard established in the rear of their property. So the proposed addition would extend about 4 meters beyond the rear wall of that existing dwelling, and the applicant has designed that side of the addition to not include any windows so that there would not be the potential for loss of privacy or overlook from those future tenants within the addition onto that property. And you're correct that we did receive some correspondence this week from the neighboring property owner to the rear, with concerns in regards to the potential for overlook into their property. So that is something that staff have looked at. In this instance, the applicant has provided a quite significant rear yard setback. So from the rear of the proposed addition to the rear lot line, there's a setback of about 22.7 meters. And in the zoning bylaw, a minimum setback of 7.5 meters is required in the rear yard in the A zone. So obviously 22 meters is quite in excess of what's required by the zoning bylaw in that regard. So for that reason, staff would not anticipate that there should be any adverse impacts as a result of the relief sought for building depth.
Good. Good, thank you very much. That was very complete. I was just looking for the particular one. So I appreciate that the staff and the developer have been able to work that out. My next question is rather more fundamental, I think, and that is that you indicated, and it's in the report more than once, that the existing bylaw prohibits the extension, expansion, or structured alternation of existing multifamily dwellings that have the effect of adding new 4A or dwelling units in 1 and 2 family dwelling A zones. Now, this concerns not only this application, but frankly, situations that are starting to crop up and have cropped up and look like they're picking up in Kingston district as well. So I know that the downtown councillors, including Councillor Neal, had to deal with this sort of thing. So my impression is that the request of the applicant is diametrically opposed to or in contradiction with that proviso in the bylaw. Is that a proper appreciation?
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. So you are correct that there is a provision that applies to properties located in the A zone in zoning bylaw 8499 to prohibit the extension or expansion of existing multi-unit dwellings because in the A zone, as of right, only 1 and 2 family dwelling units are permitted. But it would be staff's interpretation of that provision that it's intended to prohibit the expansion of multi-unit dwellings as of right, and to direct them through an appropriate planning act process in instances where property owners are interested in expanding those existing uses that may have legal non-complying status or may be permitted by way of minor variance, as is the case in this property.
So simply because in 1982 there was a minor variance, to what effect was that minor variance?
So that minor variance serves to permit the existing triplex on the subject property in its existing form. But this provision of the zoning bylaw would prohibit the extension, expansion, or structural alteration of that existing triplex without further approvals from the city.
I'm not sure I followed that, but okay, so the previous, did the minor variance set a precedent allowing for this expansion and contradiction to the existing bylaw? However many years ago that was, nearly 40 years ago.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I would say that I think staff have reviewed the proposal in the context of the suitability of the site to accommodate such a proposal, regardless of the fact that the triplex necessarily exists on the property today. So we're looking for those items that we always do in these types of instances, such as the ability for the site to accommodate appropriate vehicle parking, landscaped open space, amenity space, things of that nature that are required by the zoning bylaw that are important for the functionality of a site for a multi-unit residential building. And I think those items have been appropriately accommodated here. I hope that answers your question.
Well, I've seen these go in illegally, okay, and be perpetuated, by essentially allowed by the city. And so I'm very concerned with, I'm beginning to realize I should be even more concerned with how these things happen. Like I can see that there's an extensive rear yard there in modern terms, a great waste of space, right? But and that part of it doesn't bother me on a personal level, okay? But what bothers me is the way in which the bylaw can be ignored. And what that allows in umpteen other cases. And I can tell you, people are not happy. Okay, they haven't been happy for years. So that's why, partly why I've raised it for both issues, both in this specific issue and in what I see as something that's going on, that we should look at these minor variances as that was a one-off, pay no attention to it, right? Because they did all kinds of stuff, right? And I think, like I'm very concerned about this. So I can tell you, I don't know what the committee is going to do, and they're of course entitled to what they do. I see Mr. Barr, who is mentoring Ms. Robidoux, and so he wants to say something. Mr. Chair.
Yes, We'll recognize Mr. Barr.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Hutchison, I do want to chime in on this a little bit, just to provide a little context and policy and how it's changed over time. So the Planning Act, as well as our municipal policies and provincial policies, have changed dramatically over time. And since the minor variance was issued in 1982, which allowed this triplex to happen, planning regulations and policies have evolved. So our understanding of how these things applied have evolved. And the applicants in 1982 went through the appropriate channels in order to allow this triplex to occur on site. So they managed to obtain the appropriate planning approvals in order to legally have that triplex at 9 Cooper Street. And what zoning bylaw 8499 says is like, okay, well, this was approved, this is in place, but if you want to make changes, you have to come back to us again to have that re-examined. And that's what we're here doing today. Which is how our policies are set up in order to allow us to take another look at it should they propose built form changes or use changes. So if they wanted to add additional uses or expand the building, those would both have to come back to us for review, which is what we're here reviewing today.
Right. And so what I'm looking for, and it's not that it hasn't been offered, I recognize Ms. Rabadou and Mr. Barr doing their jobs and probably doing a good job. So, but it seems to me that under those circumstances, the committee doesn't have to vote for this. The bylaw says it's prohibited. Nice try, but no cookie. So unless there's some kind of compelling logic that says, why would we allow it? Because it's not just this particular, Councillor Neal knows this in spades in Williamsville, right? Why, if the bylaw prohibits it, then why would we allow it? Because the biggest thing, the whole central growth strategy is all about protecting, at least it's supposed to be, about protecting, 1 and 2 family neighborhoods, which granted downtown come in a whole lot of different forms, right? And I'm not telling the planners anything they don't know. So I'm looking for that bridge argument that says minor variance or no variance. This is the planning logic that gets us to this exception, because this is an exception. And it seems to me, my time in planning is on the line, but my time in council is fairly some would say overly long. Tells me that if you don't stick to it, you're going to have trouble down the line. And I've seen a couple, especially in the last number of months, that are disturbing to the neighbors. Okay, and as people, they're not really wanting much. They just say, well, this is the neighborhood I live in and I'd like to protect it. What kind of living conditions are here? And my view is that's what the bylaws are for. I'm all fine with corridors and nodes and all that sort of thing. I know that has to be different and we have to have density at those in that way. So please don't give me an argument that appeals to that, because I'm on side already. But, and I realize it sometimes interferes with residential things as well, but this is right in a neighborhood. So you can say whatever you want to me here, or you can say, I'll talk to you later. You can rein me out,
Great. Yes, Councillor Barr, your hand's still up? Did you have something?
I did just put it up a second time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Hutchison, you are correct. We are staff making a recommendation to Planning Committee this evening based on the city's policies that are currently in place, as well as the regulations that are before us in planning best practices. So it's your decision as Planning Committee whether to approve or deny or defer an application. But we've brought forward an application here today that looks at the existing policies that were in place and the policy in place prohibits expansions as of right. So the ability to just go straight to a building permit for existing multifamily units within this particular zone within the city, which is why the applications have applied for the, which is why the applicants have applied for the application that they have here this evening, which is their right under the Planning Act in order to have this decision considered by Planning Committee. So I know Ms. Robidoux in her report, and the one supported by staff, is to recommend this approval. But again, that rests in your hands as to how you wish to carry this forward. But the staff recommendation has concluded that the change to the property is appropriate, that it is desirable, and it meets the current objectives of the city. But the recommendation, again, ultimately is up to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Will, if you have
take it,
other
Mr.
questions, did you want to
No,
go
no,
with
I
them,
don't.
or did you want me to come back for those other questions?
No, I think we have to come around again anyway, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll wait.
Okay. Any other member of the committee wish to speak? Could you kindly take the chair, Councillor?
Good, I recognize you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit troubled about a couple of things. The one picture that you showed with the existing site, there was a car parked in the front yard. There was a string of cars parked along the driveway. I don't know, I would imagine there were at least five cars there. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, legally there only should have been one. The reality is that, like in Williamsville, these will be adult bedrooms. And if there's 14 bedrooms and we only provide three parking spaces, we are going to be faced with all kinds of complaints from neighbors whose sidewalks are being blocked and other things. So I'm really, and I know that we've been talking for years now. Sorry, I'm about to have a rant. We've been talking for years about how we're going to do what other university cities like Guelph and others have done, which is have it as a per bedroom rather than per unit. And we keep talking about it, and it never seems to be any closer to happening. It's under review. I cannot support a motion that's going to have 14 bedrooms and 3 parking spaces. I'll say that right up front, because that's going to be hell for the district councillor, and it's going to become hell in Williamsville because future applicants are going to be asking for those multiple numbers of bedrooms and minimal parking spaces. So my rant is over, but I do have a couple of follow-ups, and I see Ms. Robidoux's hand is up, but she may want to answer these others, or Mr. Park may wish to. We prior, and I think it maybe was in the last council, so I don't believe Mr. Kiley or Ms. Robidoux were with us. Perhaps Mr. Park wasn't as well. But council was about to pass an interim control bylaw about what was called monster additions. And we had, and I will tell you, the votes were there to have an interim control bylaw, which for 1 or 2 years would have ended all construction in the university district or beyond, in the core of the city. Staff spoke to us and said, leave it with us. We'll find a way to discourage those monster additions with multiple bedrooms. We're right back to the same thing. And I will tell you that if this proposal leads to 2 or 3 other proposals, we're going to be faced with an interim control bylaw, which developers hate, planners hate, unless there's a really specific reason for it. And that's where we'll be at. My other question was, I know that windows have been removed from the one side to address the overlook issue. Will every bedroom have a window? That was my other more trivial question.
Okay, Councillor Neal, let's get Ms. Robideau in there, and then
Excellent.
There's lots of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your questions and comments. I'm happy to address those. In regards to the existing parking configuration on the site, you're correct that the photo I shared of the existing site did depict an illegal parking configuration, which staff did make note of when they attended the site. As I noted in my presentation, there's currently only 1 parking space on the site that meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of the design standards, so the size. And so I think what this application is seeking to do is to improve that situation by establishing 3 parking spaces in the rear yard that do meet the requirements of the bylaw and will alleviate the need for additional parking spaces on site that have been established in an illegal configuration currently. The applicant is also proposing some formal bicycle parking spaces on site that meet the requirements of the bylaw in terms of design, but in terms of number, do exceed the requirements of the bylaw. So that will further contribute to providing for the needs of future tenants in that regard. I personally can't speak to your second point in terms of the motion that was previously considered of council regarding additions that were being seen in the city of Kingston. As you noted, I wasn't with the city at that time, but I'll certainly defer to Mr. Barr, Mr. Park, if they have any understanding of that prior motion and the direction that staff had taken on that item. And in regards to your question on windows for bedrooms under the Ontario Building Code, every bedroom would certainly require a window, but I will open it up to Mr. Sands, the applicant, to speak to that further if he wishes.
If we could just let Mr. Park jump in, I see his hand up. I think he wants to speak to previous interim control bylaw.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Vice Chair. Unfortunately, I can't speak to the background on that because I was not with the City of Kingston at that time. However, I would like to just remind the committee that Council did just recently approve a report at Council in April on second residential units, which limited bedroom counts in over 2 residential units to 8. And that is the way we had proposed to move forward to control this type of development. Unfortunately, that bylaw was appealed and is under appeal. So we'll have to wait to see what the LPAT outcome is on that. Regardless of that, this application would have been grandfathered anyways because it was submitted prior to that report being approved by council.
Thanks, Mr. Park. And also, Councillor Neal, just quickly, did Mr. Barr want to comment further as the applicant's planner?
Yes, Mr. Barr.
Quick point of clarification, I am not the applicant's planner this evening.
Sorry, you know what? I was looking at Jason Sands' name and I was thinking about something else. I apologize, Mr. Barr.
That's okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sands.
Good evening, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Just very quickly, not to take much time, to clarify, yes, Mr. Robideau is correct in that all of the proposed bedrooms do include a window in compliance with the OBC, the Ontario Building Code. So that has been designed to comply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Neal.
So my easiest question was answered. My other questions are still seeking an answer, I guess. I know that we can, and I'm looking to our planning staff for this. I know that we can entrench in the zoning the number of bedrooms. And we do that quite frequently. And I'm assuming we'll be doing that in this case as well. Because, and Councillor Hutchison will attest to this as well, the number of illegal bedrooms that just, when you can get $700 or $750 a month for plus utilities for a bedroom, it's really easy to start seeding basements and other things with bedrooms, and that creates issues. So can we also entrench in the zoning the number of parking spaces? So our bylaw officers can go around and see that there are 5 or 6 cars parked in the driveway and can write citations accordingly. And I know that we're going from one by right to 3 by right, but we're going to 14 bedrooms. And previously, when we had 1 by right, we had 5 or 6 cars parked there. So I don't see saying, okay, we've increased the number of bedrooms to 14, but we've also we've added 2 more parking spaces, because that's not the reality of living in the university district.
Ms. Robideau, go for it.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for those further questions. In regards to the bedroom piece, you're absolutely correct. We have included in the draft zoning bylaw a provision to specifically limit or place a limitation on a maximum number of bedrooms within this site-specific zone would be 14 bedrooms. So there wouldn't be further mechanisms put in place to limit the potential for illegal bedrooms to be established on the property. I'll also note that staff did work closely with the applicant from the time of the public meeting to significantly reduce the number of bedrooms that the applicant was proposing from 19 to 14 to reach a more kind of reasonable level and to address the concerns that have been raised by committee over time in regards to large bedroom units being brought forward. And in regards to the number of parking spaces, I think what you're asking, Mr. Chair, is that that there would be a maximum number of parking spaces indicated as opposed to the minimum, which is our standard for ease of enforcement purposes. So I think that's an interesting question. I know that there is a report coming forward to Planning Committee very shortly in regards to the proposed parking rates for the new zoning bylaw, and that staff are working hard to consider different approaches to establishing parking rates across the city, including looking at the potential for an approach by bedroom number. So that's certainly something that staff are looking at in bringing forward with the new zoning bylaw. But as you're aware, the current zoning bylaws regulate number of parking spaces by unit generally. So that's not something that's in place currently.
Mr. Sands, your hand's up. Do you want to go as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to further Ms. Robideau's comments on this application specifically, recognizing that the municipality is working onerously forward with respect to amending parking regulations, the draft bylaw that we have before you this evening for this parcel regulates both a minimum and a maximum parking perspective on site. There's a minimum parking requirement of 1 parking space per unit. So 3 parking spaces are required to comply with that 3-unit proposal. But further to that, there is a maximum parking area prescribed of 50 square meters in the rear yard. So there's not an ability on this site to accommodate a 4th parking space because that would exceed the 50 square meter maximum. So I just wanted to point out the fact that although it's an ongoing consideration of the municipality in how to best regulate, the uniqueness of this application has already been included by Ms. Robidoux's draft bylaw before you this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my only comment about that is, and it's quite frustrating, often we get applicants who come to us and have all kinds of reasons, such as that, the one you just stated, for why they can't add parking. Usually it's because their intention of the development has too much density and too many bedrooms. That it's not the city bylaw, parking bylaw, that is affecting the parking. It's the number of adult occupied bedrooms in a development, in an addition, that creates the problem. So I lied, I said my ranting was over. Now it's over.
Would you like the chair back?
I would indeed.
Please take it.
Thank you. Councillor Osanek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I have one question, and that's in order that we're creating those 3 parking spaces at the rear yard at the back, is it true that trees are coming down, or how many trees will remain?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. As part of the conceptual layout, based on where the 3 parking spaces are located, as well as the rear addition, there would be 0 trees that are currently on site that need to be removed to facilitate that development. All the trees are along the perimeter at the rear lot line, and they would all be maintained.
That's really good news to maintain the privacy of adjacent properties. Thanks for confirming that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time before we turn to the public? Seeing none, we will be coming back to the committee after the public. And once the recommendation, has been moved and seconded. So, Madam Clerk, you are now in charge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. For members of the public who are still with us this evening, if you would like to speak during this portion of the meeting, we will require you to raise your hand in Zoom. Again, this is found at the bottom of your screen when you move the mouse over the Zoom window. And Mr. Chair, I do see that we have one hand, so I'm going to ask Mr. Cito if he'd like to unmute himself, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Planning Committee members. Thank you very much. I was really heartened to hear the earlier discussion and also the conversation about this proposal. I submitted a written comment that was referred to by Councillor Hutchinson. So he, I think very well, actually multiple councillors very well addressed the broader issue that I raised in my written comment about these monster rental houses. You know, we've lived here for 13 years and we have seen this block and this area near campus really change in those years as people put on these additions, and what were single or dual family dwellings have become, you know, very large rooming houses basically, because there's lots of bedrooms. So one specific question I had was about the privacy. I'm owner and occupant at 418 Earl, and so the application wasn't clear to me, at least, about the trees. So I'm very heartened to hear that the plan right now is we're going to retain those trees at the rear of the property because they do provide quite a lot in terms of privacy and shade. My question now is more general again, which is, I think it was Mr. Parks who raised this point that in April, council had passed a bylaw that was going to limit the number of bedrooms. And as I understood it, that is currently under appeal. And so I wonder, I mean, to have this many bedrooms requires variances, multiple variances. And so given that's where council is going in recognition of this problem of monster rental housing, really changing the character and livability of the downtown area, why would why would the city want to approve these kinds of applications pending the results of that appeal? Like, in other words, if the appeal is unsuccessful and there is in fact going to be a cap on the number of bedrooms allowed based on dwelling units, which I am 100% in support of, it's almost like these applications right now could kind of get in under the bar pending that appeal. So why not put a freeze on these kinds of applications and see what the outcome is? Because it sounds like there was council support for it. I don't know what grounds the appeal would be on. Obviously, I'm not involved in that level of proceedings. If it goes through, these kinds of applications, hopefully, we're going to have to take that into consideration and be more modest in terms of how much they add and therefore how much impact they have on their neighbors, immediate neighbors like myself, and then more broadly the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Cito. And you were within your 5 minutes. I thank you for that. The way that the public consultation takes place is that everybody in the public is given an opportunity to speak, and then members of staff or the applicant have an opportunity to address those questions. I will say process-wise, when we pass a bylaw to amend a zoning provision and it's appealed, the existing previous bylaw is still in force, which is frustrating and unfortunate in my opinion, but it is what it is. So, Madam Clerk, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Ms. Watt if she would like to unmute herself, please.
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Watt.
Okay, so we're in the property, we're 416 Earl Street, so we're beside Mr. Cito, and we back onto what's being referred to as the gravel parking lot on Cooper Street. Two issues we have. One is just the absolute density of Cooper Street. As you know, a little house was squeezed in a few years ago. Two houses are just being built on the south side of Cooper Street, one behind the other in a yard. Now you want to add more. After every event, St. Patrick's Day, homecoming, when you look in the paper, the police have always been to Cooper Street. So there's an issue with noise and density and such. The other issue is the parking spots. You're absolutely correct. 14 bedrooms means 14 luxury cars come to that house, and they will probably fill the green space. I mean, that's what they do. The students, to be fair to them, park where they can, and there's this empty green space in the middle of the block, and that's where they're going to end up, is the reality. And you guys are correct when you are suspicious of our two main things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further members of the public? Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not seeing any further hands at this time.
Thank you. So we will, with those comments and questions, we'll turn to our staff and Mr. Sands, if anybody would like to address those.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for those questions. I'll address Mr. Cito's questions first. So in regards to the proposed amendments that were put forward by the city to apply citywide in regards to a maximum number of bedrooms to be applicable on low density residential properties. So it's kind of two pieces to that as it applies to this application. The first would be that this application was submitted as a complete application back in 2019, which was significantly in advance of when those proposed amendments were brought forward. So it is to be considered under the policy framework that existed at that time. And the second piece would be that those proposed amendments were brought forward to be put in place and are now subject to appeal, as Councillor Neal noted, to limit the number of bedrooms that can be established on 1 unit and 2 unit dwelling properties as of right. So without a planning application being brought forward to the city. So it does leave the opportunity open for on larger parcels that can appropriately accommodate larger units with more than a total of 8 bedrooms across the property, and subject to staff's review through a planning application such as this one. That opportunity would still be there should those amendments come into effect at a future time. So I hope that provides some clarity in terms of how those pieces would be intended. And then in regards to Ms. Watt's question in terms of density that's being brought forward on Cooper Street, and some concerns in regards to vehicle parking. The establishment of illegal vehicle parking, as she's described, is ultimately an enforcement issue for which our enforcement team at the city works very hard to stay on top of. I think that from a planning perspective, we have a bit of a balancing act when we're looking to accommodate our goals for increased housing in the city, as well as climate action. And so one of the considerations that we do take under consideration when we're reviewing applications such as this is the location of the proposed development in terms of opportunities for active transportation and access to public transit, as well as providing an appropriate balance of on-site vehicle parking in terms of meeting the needs of the site's users and meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw, as well as providing vehicle parking spaces at a rate that will hopefully encourage a reduced dependence on vehicle parking and automobiles overall, in accordance with the directives of our council. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Mr. Sands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further to Ms. Robidoux' comments, I think she very elegantly addressed the commentary and questions received from members of the public and community here before us this evening. I also just want at this time to point out and draw notion to the fact that this application was submitted nearly 2 years ago. There was a very vast and a very different application at that time. There has been significant change to the conceptual layout on site to try to align more appropriate intensification by accommodating some additional dwelling units in the core serviced area of the city, with an appropriate design and an appropriate layout given the surrounding neighborhood, built form, and scale of those builds. So, for example, the number of bedrooms has dropped by 5. The rear yard depth is triple what the minimum requirement is in the existing bylaw, and extends nearly 120 feet between the proposed dwelling and the neighbor to the north from their house. There was a major concern at the public meeting by a neighbor with respect to the utilization of the public laneway that's owned by the city, as there was municipal vegetation that would need to be cleaned up, removed, and essentially, in the view of some, devalue the property value of the abutting neighborhood, of the abutting laneway. So there was significant change with respect to utilizing on-site a driveway to get access to the rear yard, and what we've already discussed this evening about removing any front yard parking violations to screen that in the rear yard, as opposed to out along the Cooper Street frontage. As we've also noted, building depth has been dropped and designed to be exceeding the neighboring building by a mere 2 meters or 7.5 feet. So and most importantly, I'd also note in 2017, there was a fairly significant change that came along in the city of Kingston that implemented a 30% landscaped open space provision which was one that is very difficult on some undersized lots throughout the municipality and specifically the downtown core in achieving intensification, which we all know is the driver of the province through the PPS. And the 30% provision is greatly exceeded on this parcel. Giving consideration to the 3 on-site parking spaces, the detached accessory structure that's proposed to house 6 minimum bicycle parking spaces, as well as the dwelling, as along with approximately 47%. So, short of 50% of the space of this 800 square meter lot is still proposed to be maintained as open green space, which exceeds by nearly 15% what the minimums are across the city. So I just, again, wanted to raise the evolution that the applicant has worked very closely with staff, as Ms. Robidoux has mentioned, and tried to come to a proposal that is considered appropriate, desirable, that meets the objectives of the province and the city with respect to appropriate infill development and intensification within its core. I thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any other members of the committee have any comments or questions? I have one, if I might.
Recognize you, yep.
This is probably a question for Mr. Park. I heard reference of a neighboring property, don't have to worry about overlook because their backyard is graveled. It's my understanding that fully graveled backyards in the core of the city are illegal, because what they are, they create a large parking lot, which some people illegally rent out parking spaces to the public, to students and staff. And so is that even a legal situation? And if it isn't, can we have enforcement look into it? Because we definitely need less gravel and more green space in the core of the city.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you are correct. But in order for us to formally investigate that, we'd have to receive a complaint, which would then be looked into by law enforcement, and then we would follow up with the property owner on that.
I appreciate that everything is complaint driven. Consider this a complaint. And we need to look into the fact that too many backyards are getting graveled over and become illegal parking spaces in the core of the city. So if you could look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, we will follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yield the chair to you, Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Okay, it's now, we need a mover and a seconder for the proposal. Councillor Kiley has moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Osanek has seconded. It's now on the floor. Are there any further questions regarding this proposal? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay. I will now ask for a recess because the protocol that we've established, I believe, and a clerk can speak to this, is we need to recess for at least 5 minutes, and the clerk can speak to this, in order for us to, and this would be for the people who voted against it, to draft the rationale for why we voted against it. So could I have a motion to recess for 5 or 10 minutes? Probably 10. Okay, moved by Councillor Osanek, seconded by Councillor Kiley. Am I following the appropriate protocol, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are correct that we do require a motion with the reasons for the denial of the application. And it would be helpful to have that in writing from the committee. Therefore, a recess is definitely in order to allow the committee to do so. And I see that Councillor Hutchison has a point
Yes.
of order.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchison. The floor is yours. If you want to unmute. Is your mute not working?
It's not working, no.
It is now.
There. Okay, sometimes the clerk and I are competing to see who can do it. It seems to me, and she is invariably correct, of course. It seems to me, do we have to give this rationale now or have it prepared for council? Because I've only ever seen this happen at council that I can remember. And so I'm looking for the guidance from the chair. And
I believe the direction is that
if it happens at council.
Yeah. I believe the direction is that we're supposed to do it when we turn in the denial. That came up one night when we were approaching midnight, and I suggested that we submit it to senior staff and to as a report to council, as this would always be going to excuse me, not the next council, but the council after that. So I will, let's take a 10-minute recess, get our ducks in order, and decide then when we reconvene, whether we want to give whether we need to give ourselves a little bit longer period of time. I've been a little frustrated at times with the rule that if you vote against something in a scramble, you have to do something immediately afterwards. That isn't the best way to make decisions, and it shouldn't be a disincentive for doing the right thing if we really feel strongly that we should vote against something. So, so even if we had a full 5 members here, we have 3 votes in favor of turning this down as it now stands. So Councillor Hutchison, I see your hand was up.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I was wondering if we could ask Mr. Park, as the acting director, whether we're required to do this at this point. Because as you say, it would be better to have more than a few minutes. So it's a procedural issue, so I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would actually defer that to Madam Clerk because it is a clerk's procedural issue, not a planning issue.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, if you could speak to this. I don't remember any council ever passing this as a requirement, or the planning committee ever passing this as a requirement of the committee if we happen to say no to something. It's frustrating because it truly is, especially if we're approaching midnight, which we haven't, thankfully, thanks to staff, done in the last little while. But it's definitely a disincentive for us to rush through a decision that probably needs a little bit longer time. So, but if you could speak to that, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, it is my understanding that this is a practice that the committee has held for applications that have been denied in the past. My understanding is that it's not legislatively required by the Planning Act. However, it is a process that Kingston has adopted and has traditionally upheld through the Planning Committee to provide the rationale for the denial, which is then agreed to by the committee through a vote and included as part of the minutes for this meeting. If it pleases the committee, what we can do is if Mr. Chair, if you're okay with taking a brief recess, I can quickly check on this and come back with a more complete response as to the proper procedural avenue to take at this time.
I think that would be a good idea. I will point out, though, even if this was an established written bylaw approved thing, we could anybody with any committee with 2/3 majority could say, notwithstanding, we will do this over the next 48 working hours or something like that. So, but if you could check on that, that would be good. And I will declare a recess, and perhaps we can, I believe Councillor Hutchison raised a strong rationale from the perspective of the wording of the previous bylaw, but there are other issues that we should bring up as well. So, so are people comfortable with doing that? I don't want to leave Councillor Kiley out, but he didn't vote against this. So the people who need to defend the vote are actually Councillor Osanek, myself, and Councillor Hutchison. Yes, Councillor Kiley.
Councillor Neal, provided the clerk comes back with the recommendation and further information that it will proceed as described, do we get another chance to speak against the new motion that was the, okay, now I'm getting caught up in this. So essentially what I'm wanting to know is if we have yourself, Councillor Osanek and Councillor Hutchison put something together, does that become a motion at this committee that we then vote on again?
I don't believe so. It becomes a rationale and a statement as to why we didn't support it. And that and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, that then goes as a no report to council. Council has an opportunity to overturn it or to support the committee's decision.
Fair enough. Okay, so sorry if I may, just something.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, no problem. Just as the dissenting voice, I realized I didn't articulate myself at this juncture because I thought the planners had done a fine job in defending their case. At council, because it's a report to council, I am able to speak to my position on it at that point. I'm just wondering.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Yeah, because it'll be an open debate at council whether to support the decision of the committee or to overrule the decision of the committee.
Fair enough. Okay, thanks so much.
Is all of that accurate, Elizabeth? I think it is. Or is that something you want to ask?
Mr. Chair, you are correct that when this does come back to council, all members of council have an opportunity to debate it as it is a motion on the floor. As the question was to whether or not the recommendation, or sorry, the reasons for denial are able to be discussed. I am not entirely certain at this time. I will get better clarification once we go into our recess, but it is my understanding that it is to be voted on as an approved denial from the committee.
Yeah, I believe that's always the case. Councillor Osanek.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, like I've been on planning committee since 2007, all years except 1 year. And this has just been a new rule that's come out of the air as far as I'm concerned. Like I remember 2007, 2010 council voting things down. And then we just talked about it and debated it again when it came to planning committee, or sorry, when it came to council, when the denial came from planning committee to the council floor, we just, debated it again there. Like we voted on it right now tonight, and that's it. And Madam Clerk, like you said, that everything we did tonight won't be on at council now until June 22nd. So even this rationale, like we never had to prepare a rationale to then debate like in the earlier days. And so I would say whatever we do tonight, like we have until the week prior to our June 22nd meeting to then throw something together to make sure it's on the June 22nd agenda. Like that's even new. We never did that in there.
I agree with Councillor Osanek. I've been on planning or attended planning meetings throughout ever since 2010. And I think it was 2014 maybe that I came on as a voting member. But this was a protocol and a policy that just seemed to, and I don't remember any council ever debating it. I don't remember the committee ever debating it. It just seemed to crop up. If you vote against something, you need to write the rationale and you need to do it right away. And so, Councillor Hutchison, yes.
I just called, hopefully this is in line. I just called Councillor McLaren, who wrote 2 of these at council. And he said it was not done at planning. Remember, he was on planning.
Yes.
He wrote one. I'm not sure one wasn't for something he was one of the members not approving, and the other one might have been for something that he did approve, but he gave them the rationale. Okay, so the and he says that that it was done at council, and we had a recess at council, and in one case, and it got written then, and the other case, I think it came prepared. They prepared it beforehand. So I think the reason being is because the council votes in favor of the recommendation, and it's all mute. Mute's not the right word. It's all neither here nor there. Okay? So we don't have to do it now, but we do have to be prepared if it's turned down by council. That's a different ballgame.
Yeah, or it needs to be prepared even informally before council, so we all know
yes
how we can explain.
It should be a motion, by the way. It should be a motion, because otherwise there's no formal.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
That's Councillor McLaren.
Oh, is it? Okay, sorry. I didn't recognize your voice.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, it's kind of hard. I have it here. Yeah, no, he says it's a motion, but that motion would come at council. We don't have to do it now.
Okay.
Whatever we've done, rightly or wrongly, we've done. Okay? And then we can devise a rationale, and I guess we could present it to council. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Right? And Kylie will be able to, address it as he's a member of.
We have a mover and a seconder, and I think Councillor Hutchison and Councillor Osanek would work since they just spoke to this. For deferral of any decision, not a deferral of this decision because the vote's already been taken. But yes, Councillor, or Madam Clerk, I just demoted you to Councillor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I just wanted to quickly respond to that at this point, if it is the will of the committee not to provide rationale at this time, that is acceptable, and that is a decision that the committee can make. I will say that rationale is generally given at this level to provide openness and transparency to the applicant and members of the community as to why the application was turned down. However, the recommendation can be forwarded to council, the June 22nd council meeting, noted as that the committee has voted against staff's recommendation, and it can be determined at the council meeting whether or not the application will be approved. At that time, rationale can be provided at council as to if it should be denied at council. Rationale can be provided at that point.
That sounds reasonable and sensible, and I'm not sure the protocol that we were trying to follow before had those two qualities about it. Councillor Kiley, Vice Chair Kiley.
Oh, that's fine. Councillor Neal, I just want to say through you a few things. One is that, as I'm still the rookie on the bench here, that is the protocol that we've just agreed isn't needed, is something that I was always told is needed. So it sometime within my term has come up, but I agree with your comments that it's a disincentive for folks to vote against something, and it provides an unbelievable burden on the committee if committee members are doing this as one of many other responsibilities on council, and essentially they'd be going up against paid staff for both the proponent and the city. So I just wanted to comment, though, while I disagreed with the vote of the other committee members tonight, I do think the comments on the procedure, which we're not going to follow, if it is even a procedure, were exactly accurate. So I'm glad that that has been sussed out.
And I think we should kind of come together, and perhaps Councillor Hill as well, who's away tonight, and recent members of the committee, we should look at that policy protocol and either through the committee or at council, revise that to make it a more sensible policy and protocol. Mr. Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could make the suggestion of if we could proceed to the recess, and that would allow us to contact clerks and confirm what the protocol is. Because I have been talking with other staff members, and there is somewhat of a history of this and a request to do this. So I think it would be for 10 minutes to.
I would really appreciate knowing the history of this. So, because it just seemed to be something that suddenly appeared. And so the primary question is this a policy that was ever approved at council? That would be my primary question. Okay. And if it is a policy that was accepted at council, it takes 2/3 of any committee to do an action that is notwithstanding that. And I think we have more than 2/3 of this committee who are saying they need to take a longer look at this. So okay. I believe we have a mover and a seconder already, Madam Clerk, for a recess. And I would suggest a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and complete the agenda. Is everybody in agreement for that? Excellent. So, Madam Clerk, Mr. Park, see you in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Members of the planning committee, we just need a little bit more time.
5 more minutes?
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay, be back soon.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Clerk, I'm unmuted.
Councillor Neal, we're just going to continue the recess until 8:50.
No problem. Thank you. Hello, hello. Sorry, Montreal's winning.
Oh,
Nobody cares. Yay, Habs. Anyway.
oh, Councilor Neil.
So we're back. What did you find out, Mr. Park?
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to try and explain this as succinctly and clearly as possible. You are correct on the historic part of it. Previously, under the Planning Act, under the the Wynne government, if a planning committee were to refuse an application, they had to provide the written rationale as to why the application was being refused to accompany the report going to council for consideration. However, the Ford government, through some bill changes that came into force last August, took that requirement away. The city really doesn't have a policy in place regarding this. However, it is encouraged that this be done for openness and transparency as to why the application was received. And it also makes the matter a lot clearer before council when the report arrives there. Because if the report arrives without a rationale or an explanation, and council goes on, receives the report and refuses it, it then has to be done at council. So it creates a little bit of muddiness at council.
I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to deny us providing a clear rationale. I just don't think we should do it under the gun of having to do it instantly. So I think I saw Elizabeth's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to provide a little bit more to what Mr. Park is saying, the other aspect of this is that council is not afforded the same opportunity as the committee in order to review the materials and actually hear from members of the committee. You have also been able to speak directly with staff and receive advice and counsel on the matter. And although council can ask questions of staff, they do not have the same experience nor the same ability to really delve into the materials as this committee has. Therefore, when this committee provides its rationale, it is providing it with having the utmost opportunity to review the file for the applicant and to consider what staff has put before them. In addition, when this committee does approve a recommendation, it is the reasons for that approval are within the report itself, as staff has provided that rationale. Unfortunately, when it is denied, the applicant nor the community is given the same opportunity to understand why it was that committee members disagreed with staff recommendation. So that is the reason why the framework was put in place and why we tend to return to it just for the sake of openness and transparency. I do hear, sorry, Mr. Chair, I do hear the committee's concern with providing that rationale tonight and feeling that they are unable to perhaps put together specifically what they would like to say towards that rationale. However, I will state that because it is a combined rationale that is submitted to council, we do request that the motion be approved by the committee because it is not individual reasons as to why it was denied. It is the committee as a whole who is denying the application.
I see Vice Chair Kiley and Councillor Hutchison both have their hands up. I have something to say too, but I'm sure one or both of them will cover it. So go ahead.
Thanks, Mr.
Vice
Chair. Through you, this is a can of worms I'd prefer not to be open, but I think it's been open before us, so I'm diving right in. I guess I'm cautious here because would not a rationale from this committee constitute a piece of evidence that could be brought before the LPAT? Are we not asking 3 committee members, again, contra the professional advice of paid staff for both the proponent and the city, to provide a documentation that could be used in a tribunal process? Or is this just kind of like, oh, just so council knows, here are some of the reasons we're thinking, and it's more casual and more in the spirit of transparency? Or is this actually something that is a legal matter?
Would anybody care to answer that question? Regarding whether it's a legal matter, go ahead, Mr. Park.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm hesitant to respond to that, Councillor Kiley, because there are potential legal ramifications from this. And obviously that's not my background.
Yeah.
And we don't have anybody from city legal here.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. I think that yourself, Mr. Park, and the clerk have given us earnest, honest answers. I'm not questioning that at all, just to be clear. But I think this is a much bigger question than what we should do in the moment. And it requires significant thought. And I think it goes to Councillor Neal's point earlier, which I fully get behind. This is not a policy or procedure. And this is just kind of, back of the envelope, we recommend this. As much as I do genuinely respect what you're saying, it just isn't, I think, appropriate to be putting together something hastily that then could be used essentially against the city later on. And just not due diligence to do that if we don't have a legal opinion on it.
Councillor Hutchison and then Councillor Osanek. And then me. Go ahead, Councillor Hutchison.
Okay, so I'm not sure whether we're agreeing or not. I appreciate what staff have said, and both the clerk and Mr. Park. The thing is, the law has changed, so that does make it more complicated. But I think what the clerk is, the main point for me right now is we don't have to do this now, and we shouldn't do it now. But before, a rationale had to be provided, as Mr. Park pointed out, by law, right? Or strongly suggested it was principally for the sake of the city's lawyers that would have to go to the LPAT potentially, right? And the tricky part here is not, why it's turned down. Well, it might be because I haven't talked to Councillor Sanik or Neil directly, right? But is that, you sometimes supply alternatives. They say that they don't appear to be capricious. So anyway, my personal opinion is that that we just proceed. We finished the meeting, which is basically over at this point, and we'll put together the rationale in the meantime, and it'll go with the motion to council, and as per what the clerk said, and she's been instructed to say, I take it, and it sounds familiar. So it will be used at the LPAT? Yes, clearly. Unless in the meantime, staff can go to legal and say, this is what happened. What are we going to do? The problem with this before and now, that when council goes against staff's recommendation, and I'm sorry, staff is not always right, we are not afforded the use of the city's own planners. So we have to do the best we can. Either that or you're saying there's this brick wall and council can't say no with any meaning, right? And I know that Mark and the planning staff don't want that either, right? So it's it's not something we're going to solve tonight. So in my view, we should just continue with the meeting. The chair can make a slight, a small ruling that that's what we're going to do. And that's perfectly legal. And we'll pick it up. We voted against it. Now we have a responsibility. And we'll try to fulfill it. Now, I prefer to be talking to planning and legal. But I think, in fact, that is probably the part of what I'm saying that most is in line with what Councillor Kiley's concerns are. That we should be talking to legal and planning and saying, okay, we turned it down. Sorry about that, but that's the way we think it should go.
I believe,
what do we do?
I believe that we have a possible, very feasible remedy for all this. I'd like to hear from Councillor Osanek, who had her hand up, and then I'll give Mr. Park an opportunity to speak again. But I think there's a kind of clear way that with even given our timetable, we can get through all of this. Councillor Osanek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just like Councillor Hutchinson said, we don't do anything further tonight. The committee declined the application. Now, yeah, we can get together our little rationale and submit it with the council agenda on June 22nd, because that works in our favor, because then that gives the rest of the council members for them to read what our points are and for them to consider it. Let's think about Heritage Committee, right? We go to Council Heritage Committee, they either support it, they don't. The committee members, have voted on a divisive issue, right? And then we get nothing going into council, and then we have to try to piece it all together at council. It would be a lot easier if Heritage Committee also gave us a rationale when something was going against the staff recommendation, because that would help us as council members who aren't on Heritage Committee decide. So we will give a rationale for the June 22nd meeting that everyone can see ahead of time when the council agenda comes out. And then what happened, and like council could say, they could approve it like you did, Councillor Kiley, and then we lose, but then the application goes forward, and then we didn't have to waste too much time on it, right? But just say that council actually does decline this application. We'll have the rationale. And then what happens is that the city hires an outside legal lawyer, right? Because we'll be going against the staff recommendation, and it goes in camera. And so in 2007, we voted against an apartment building that staff had recommended to go forward. So we, in open session at council, right, we debated, do we support planning committee? Do we approve the application? And it was decided that council said, no, we'll decline the application. So then we went in camera, and then the lawyer that was hired to represent council, right? We gave the same rationale to that lawyer that we did at that council meeting, in public. And then that lawyer gave the opinion saying, you don't have a chance, or maybe you do have a chance. And even then council could decide, oh, Mr. Lawyer, Mrs. Lawyer, we really don't have a chance. And they'll go, no, you have no chance. And then we can still change our mind and then, recommend it. So like, this is just a little piece of the process tonight, and we'll do the rationale and see what happens at council on June 22nd.
Yeah, just before Mr. Park speaks, I just want to say, I think a really sensible way for us is let's look at our timetable. First of all, we've heard that legally under the previous provincial government, this was a requirement. It's been tossed out by the current government. So we're not obligated to do this. But I think I would agree with the Wynne government. It's a sensible thing to do. We have I believe that correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have a planning meeting next Thursday. And what we could do is to get onto the addeds. All that we need to do as a committee is come up with the rationale for why we voted the way we did and get it onto the addeds as information for our planning committee meeting. Not re-debate it, nothing like that. Just here's the information, here's the report. That would be a public document. So Mr. Sands and any member of the public have access to that information. And it goes as part of our report that we've turned this down. So the planning report, when it goes to council 10 days later, has the information, the public have the information, the proponent has the information. We have 6 days to kind of come up with a rationale, formal, sensible rationale to explain why we just voted the way we did. Does that, I see a thumbs up or a finger up. Go ahead. Yes, Councillor Kiley and then Councillor
Mr.
Hutchison.
Chair, I don't know if you can hear me. My computer is frozen. Okay, good, thanks. I just want to say that I believe our next planning meeting isn't until the 17th. I'm not sure if that changes your thinking. That's all.
Okay. Okay. I didn't realize that it was
the doubleheader this week or these past 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, it would still even work with the 17th as well, but we could still meet next week, hammer it out, and send it as an information report to be included with this, and just make sure, just the way the clerks and planning always does, that members of the public that have expressed an interest in this file and the proponent, Jason Sands, receive a copy of it in a timely fashion. How would that not work, Mr. Park? And then we'll go to Councillor Hutchison.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I believe what you're proposing is a reasonable option. I do wish to clarify, there's been some further information provided to me. This isn't the first time this debate has come up, I think either through council or committee. And I think what Madam Clerk and I were trying to express is, yes, there were changes in the legislation. All what was being suggested was this has been recommended as a best practice. There is no procedural bylaw that says committee has to do this at the moment. It's being suggested it's best practice. So again, going back to what you have just put on the table as a suggestion, I think is a reasonable solution to bring forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's a best practice for us to do it immediately after a vote. Particularly, I mean, just discussing this will take us into a 9:30 meeting, which I'm fine with, but
and I respect that.
Not reasonable. It's not best practice. So for that reason, I think I agree. And I think maybe the committee or a couple of us should craft a policy to take to council that truly makes a best practice of this and recognizes why it's important that we do this. And Councillor Hutchison's absolutely right. We need to strengthen any LPAT review that takes place. Councillor Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out, Councillor Carly pointed out we don't have a meeting.
Okay.
The 17th. So that was a
My
very
bad.
I also think it's not entirely, like, I think preparing it for the next council meeting, which I think, I don't know which one occurs. If we postpone it to planning next, the next planning meeting, I think we're making it worse for the proponent. And that's not the purpose of this vote, right? The purpose of this vote is to make a point about adhering to the bylaws under certain circumstances, at the very least. So like I said before, I agree that we shouldn't be deciding now, and we should try to get it either before council or planning as quickly as possible, and let the votes fall where they may. Should we give an explanation? Yes, for the very reasons the clerk, Mrs. Fawcett, pointed out, right? And Mr. Park is backed up. So we're not going to do it tonight. I really don't want to do it tonight because I know basically why I voted against it, but Councillor Neal pointed out that there might be other reasons, and so if so, they should be included. But you got to think that through. Now, the way, I just want to say one small thing. The way, and this is addressed to the acting director, the way I think this should work is that the planners that are directly involved, we can't go to them because they could be called by the proponent, the applicant, I'll be clear, to an LPAT tribunal to talk about why they said it was okay, right? Now, I know it's a departmental thing, but I really think access to a planner for those who voted no should also be afforded for. Because, and I don't know, if they were on staff, I'd be fine with that myself, but just to make sure it has a professional imprimatur connected to it. Otherwise, we're out there on our own. And we've done it, and it's turned out okay, but maybe more by luck than anything else. And by we, I mean council has done that.
Yeah.
Right? Two or three of us were there, right? So anyway, I'm going to shut up. I think we should just continue with the meeting, and we'll do it later because I don't think we're going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The point of looking for, we should have a planner. I'm not sure at this point we need a planner because we'll get planning council, we'll get professional opinion. Yes, it's from the yes side, but that happens at that time. If council ends up supporting our no vote, then we also have an opportunity in camera to say, yes, we want to defend this LPAT. And then we have an external planner to tell us yes or no, this, you have a good shot at this. So I think I agree with Rob that we should, Councillor Hutchison, there's too many Robs in the room. We should get it done. We should get it done responsibly. We don't need to get it done tonight. I'm sorry, I jumped the queue. Councillor Osanek.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So our deadline to get the rationale done and submitted is Tuesday, June 15th, because the council meeting that tonight's planning committee meeting will be on the council agenda is Tuesday, June 22nd. So we have to get the rationale, please, 3 of us, by Tuesday, June 15th.
That sounds sensible. And so yeah, that's very reasonable. How can we address the idea that we should be able to share it with the public who have standing right now and Mr. Sands and the applicant? Yes, Councilor Sands.
It will be part of our council agenda, right? So
Which would be available to the public on Thursday morning. Okay.
Exactly, by the weekend, right? When they publish it onto the website. So on the 18th or 19th of June, that's when the council agenda goes on our City of Kingston website.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that timeline, but
It'll be an information report.
yeah. Are other members of the committee comfortable with that process? Councillor Kiley.
I'm hesitant, Mr. Chair, to tell you the truth, and I'm not trying to throw a wrench contrarian. I'd like this to be figured out at another time, but I do need to voice my concern that if additional reasons are brought up in this rationale that's presented to council as a reason why committee voted against it, but they weren't actually expressed at committee, that puts someone like myself, it just happens to be me tonight, but another person that might have voted against something, in a bit of an awkward spot if more details have been given in a rationale than we actually voted on tonight. So I'm wondering if, I'm not sure you, Mr. Chair, or someone else could comment on that because it seems a bit strange to me.
Yeah, Councillor Hutchison, I would suggest, had a rationale that I agreed with, but a different rationale than the points that I was trying to make, which I think I made publicly, or that Councillor Osanek made some of those same or different points. So you're right, we're not looking to dig up a whole new undiscussed, unpresented at the committee rationale.
Okay, thank you. That's good. It's just distilling everything that was said in its totality as opposed to adding additional information.
I can appreciate that. Councillor Hutchison, but were you done, Councillor Osanek?
I just want to make a very brief point. I understand Councillor Kiley's concern, but in fact, councillors don't have to give the rationale for why they voted. And sometimes they will get, I know I've said, well, this is positive for this and this is negative. And in the end, I obviously have to vote one way or the other. And other councillors may or may not be persuaded by the second last thing I or someone else said, right? So the thing is that I agree, you shouldn't go around digging around for it. And I don't think, and certainly not in this case, you should, but it's, the rationale has to come out in the explanation you have to supply. I understand what you're getting at, but it's not reflective of the way councils and committees actually work. I'm done.
Thank you. Councillor Kiley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for indulging me further. I have to strongly disagree with the last comment. It doesn't make sense that a rationale from a committee could go to council that's in addition to what actually was conducted at committee. Again, I just happen to be in the odd spot tonight where I'm speaking from this perspective, but procedurally, even if I'm taking myself out of this personally, to suggest that committee could put forward a report that was detached in any way from what was conducted at committee and then tell council that's what was decided upon, to me is just not in keeping with the very things I know we all want, which is transparency and openness. So this is why I'm happy to go along with your suggestion tonight, Mr. Chair, because it makes sense to me, but I guess it's a note to staff that this is a huge red flag, and I think we're in really dangerous water given our discussion.
I don't totally disagree with you, although sometimes, I want to flesh out the rationale that I think you can find within the transcript. of the meeting. And this would mean, Elizabeth, that we would definitely look to using the transcript of the draft minutes. They would be very helpful here. But having said that, I think there are times when we need to flesh that information out that we present in a rational way. So I would prefer that. And Mr. Sands, I think this is a procedural discussion we're having. And so we'll share with you the information, but I don't think your input would be appropriate at this time. So does the committee agree with that? Yeah, okay. Yes, Councillor Kylie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, and I hear you, and I am genuinely trying to understand both sides of this. I'm wondering if staff would comment, because again, I'm feeling like we're in hot water here. We're saying we can add additional details that are probably related, but not, and it's still an official report from to council that could go before the LPAT. It just seems pretty mired. And so I'm wondering
and
if staff
I'll give Mr. Park an opportunity to speak to this, but I just want to say that our problem is we don't have a policy or a protocol that's clearly, succinctly established. So we're kind of muddling a little bit in the dark here. Mr. Park, and then I see Janet James is with us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think actually I will let the Deputy Clerk speak to the matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We definitely do need, as a committee, to come up with a recommendation for policy to go forward to council for approval. So we're on solid ground in future. Ms. James.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just hoping I can provide a little bit of clarification here. It is rare that the committee in the last couple of years has turned down or recommended that an application not be approved. There's only a couple that jump to mind for me. At one time, there was rationale provided at the committee, and on another occasion, rationale was not provided at the committee. Councillor Hutchison's recollection is correct that when it came to council, council recessed and the rationale was provided at that time. So that is certainly an option. I just want to make it clear, though, there would not be an additional report coming. The mechanism for elected officials to bring something forward on an agenda is by way of a motion. So we would need rationale in the form of a new motion moved and seconded that could be included on the council agenda. And when that agenda is put together, we could include a note in the agenda that would indicate that that new motion is to be considered in conjunction with the report from Planning Committee that is recommending that the application for this, that this application be denied. I hope that helps clarify. There's not an additional report that is going to be prepared. There would be a motion duly moved and seconded and included on the agenda.
Okay. So, what can we do to get back to the hockey game now? What can we do to, and I like Councillor Osanik's proposal for making sure that we have the report the week before the council meeting that the planning report would be going to, so that everybody has the information required. Is there anything else? Do other people agree with that timeline makes sense? Councillor Hutchison.
Sorry, I just want to make sure. One, I'm fine with that timeline. I think it gives people a chance to see what's happening or what has happened. but I want to make it clear that in the way that Councillor Carley is talking about adding things, I'm not talking about that. Okay? It's just that when explaining things, you have to flesh them out sometimes, and that we don't always know why our compatriots, our colleagues voted the way they did, right? And but when it comes down to trying to explain it to somebody, then you know, okay, and you may, God help you, but you might change your mind, right? So that will all come out at council. As the clerk has quite rightly said, it'll be a motion, and either you agree or you won't agree, and like everything else, and
Yep.
We'll go from there.
And I think that's would be a very positive thing, so that future planning committees, even if it is only twice a year when we turn down a recommendation, don't have to spend all this time kind of struggling to sort it all out. But there's an established policy, protocol, timeline. So, and I see a few people nodding on that, so, yeah. So, yes, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just an apology to Councillor Hutchison if he felt misrepresented. That wasn't my intent. I was just trying to think the potential implications of this, and they seemed hairy at best. So my apologies, and I understand what you're saying, and you too, Councillor Neal. So thank you for taking my questions. I appreciate it.
No problem. So, are we good then with where we're going forward? And I will reach out to people to find out a timeline when we can all get together and draft this up.
Well, we'll be in touch, right?
Yeah.
We'll be in touch with each other.
Sounds good. Yeah, or everybody can just send to me, I'm free at these times, and we can sort it all out. And I know that Councillor Kiley didn't vote in favor of it, but as a member of the committee, I have no issue with him attending the meeting if he wishes to. And it would be better, I think, if we had four memories working on what's just transpired than just the three of us. So are people comfortable with that? He doesn't have to put his name to that decision, to the report, but I think he could help us out with it. First of all, you're comfortable with that, Councillor Kiley?
That's fine. I think that's reasonable. Thanks.
You're welcome. Is everybody else comfortable with that? Good. So, I think we're ready to move on, if I'm not mistaken. So, we have no motions. We have no notices of motion. We have no other business. We've received correspondence pertinent to, excuse me, to this issue that we've had before us that we probably want to refer to again. And the date of our next meeting is Thursday, June 17th, 2021. So, motion to adjourn. Pick of the litter. Councillor Hutchison, Councillor Osanek. All those in favor? Thank you very much. And I guess we'll see you soon. Take care.